Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. We're going to strive to get started on time so you have as much time to hear from our amazing panelists as possible. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I want to welcome all of you to our MBA for Executive Colloquium. I'm Wendy Sung, and I serve as the Assistant Dean for the MBA for Executives program. And I'm delighted to be able to welcome our MBA for Executive students who are in the audience as well as online, our Yale community members, our incoming class of 2026 students who are online, as well as prospective students. So a lot of people joining us online today, in addition to all of you wonderful, lovely people in the audience. As you know, colloquium is typically a time when our faculty directors in asset management, healthcare, and sustainability brings in corporate leaders and policymakers or renowned faculty to speak about their work, about their career. Well, today's colloquium is a little different, but very, very, very special because we are privileged to host a distinguished EMBA alumni panel of remarkable individuals who have navigated the challenges of entrepreneurship and also to share their journey and their stories. So welcome back to campus. We're delighted to have you here. And now I'd like to hand the rest of the time over to Amy Kundrat, who is a graduate of the class of 2021 with a focus on sustainability. Amy currently serves as the Director of Innovation Community at Yale Ventures, Yale's hub for innovation and entrepreneurship. So Amy, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I think I'm completely thrilled to be here today and to talk about one of my favorite topics, innovation and entrepreneurship. So as Wendy said, I'm the Director of Innovation Community at Yale Ventures, Yale's hub for innovation and entrepreneurship. We sit within the Provost's office and we work on corporate strategy and industry partnerships, innovation training. So we have a bunch of innovation centers within our purview. Innovation community, that's me. That's how we connect people, places, and sources of capital. And of course, the technology transfer office for the university. And so I'm with four of my lovely fellow alums here today. And I'm actually going to let you all introduce yourselves. So why don't we start with Desio and work our way down?
Yes, nice to meet you. I'm Desio. I run a hedge fund. And I actually did the sustainability track. So we can talk a little bit about that as well. My fund is a global macro fund, but we do integrate sustainability across the board.
Desio's being humble. He's brilliant. I'm Jamie Cox. I had a career in commercial real estate coming into the EMBA program with an eye to move into commercial solar. And through my time here at Yale, launched a commercial solar firm and have been off and running ever since. It's been a wild ride and you're about to hear about it.
Hello, I'm Ella Archibald. I'm a founder of PinkBridge, an innovative at-home delivery dermatology services. We officially launched in August 2023. PinkBridge mission is to make aesthetic dermatology convenient and accessible for our clients. Through our online platform, we connect our customers in New York City area with their licensed specialists.
Hi, everybody. My name's Scott Snyder. I am a co-founder of Proven Behavior Solutions. So my co-founder is in the front row here, my wife, Lindsay, and business partner. What we do is we provide behavioral therapy, speech therapy, and occupational therapy, primarily for children with autism. We also work with other adults in the community and adolescents. We have a growing program doing assistive technology in partnership with the state. And prior to all of that, and prior to my Yale experience, I was an Air Force officer, still currently serving in the reserves.
Great. So I think we all know what you all do, but I'm curious, and I think everyone's curious, what inspired you to start or scale or acquire, right? Because there's many definitions of entrepreneurship and innovation. So, but would love to hear, what inspired you to actually take that leap? So who would like to take that one on?
Go. Serving in commercial real estate, I managed a variety of different assets around the country, airport terminals at JFK and LAX, shopping centers, mixed-use developments, and portfolios of retail and multifamily and office. And during that time, started putting solar on the buildings and properties that I managed and owned, and learned a lot about some of the misconceptions that were out there. And solar is very profitable in certain markets and not profitable in others. And if you have an asset in a profitable market, you're really not achieving highest and best use unless you're considering how to monetize the rooftop and vacant land and space over parking. And this is the big barrier that I saw with the commercial real estate industry was misconceptions, either out-of-date data on how expensive solar is or the value of solar or the benefits of solar. But also there was a lot of mismessaging from solar companies to commercial asset owners where you've got highly experienced electrical engineers trying to sell something to real estate people. And they weren't speaking the same language. And that was what it was an aha moment for me as I was pursuing my MBA here at Yale to say, I need to translate. And I can do that. And that was what really spurred me to start NPV Solar.
I can go next. So the inspiration to start my own business stemmed from my previous career in another country. Right after finishing medical school, I ventured into establishing private dermatology practice, which was specializing in aesthetic, surgical, and cosmetic dermatology. The experience was incredibly positive. Running my own business gave me the freedom to explore new venues in medical profession and in business, making my own decisions and taking calculated risks. Before entering into MBA program, I worked in New York City for private practices and New York City hospitals. And I had an idea to establish concierge dermatology practice when providers can come to patient's location. Coming from another part of the world, I needed an American education to better understand American business landscape and build a successful venture. So during my MBA program, I changed my career from working full-time in the hospital to becoming a full-time startup founder.
Do you want to go, Decio?
Yeah, of course. I think what I think was an evolving idea. I started in finance a while ago, and finance gets a bad rap, especially after the financial crisis. But there was something in it that I felt like there was more to it than just making money. And I think that's what attracted me on coming to Yale as well, this idea of being leaders for business and society. And I thought there was a better way of doing finance, a better way of doing investments that wasn't just to maximize the manager's own well-being. And it was really coming here that I think a big part of this idea matured and it became to a stage that was good enough to take it to market. We were just talking before the panel that one of the things that I really attracted me to Yale as well was the fact that you could take electives in different places, different schools. And I recommend you look into it. You can really expand what you're doing here at SOM as well. And I was fortunate to be able to get to do a financial markets course with Professor Schiller. So he's the famous Nobel Prize for behavioral finance. But this is a fairly beginner's course, and he makes sure that there's a whole, and he talks about all different kinds of markets and gives a pretty good introduction to financial markets. And to my surprise, he doesn't really, in the reading list, you're not going to really find the usual suspects, the irrational exuberance and all the books that he's famous for. From what I remember from the reading list, there was one book called The Finance and the Good Society, which he also wrote, and most people don't even know, I didn't know. And the concept of the book is that finance serves a higher purpose of transferring wealth from your productive years to your unproductive years. And that's what it is in the end of the day, apart from a few other things when it comes to credit and being able to generate, productive wealth coming from an emerging market. I can resonate with that. But yeah, so the idea really was trying to do finance in a different way. And then, for that, you also needed the right people and the right idea. Yeah, I'll pause here. I can talk a lot about that, and I'm sure other questions are gonna, put into perspective some of what I'm saying. But yeah.
I should have pointed out, so Desi and I were classmates back in the EMBA program. So it's just fantastic to be up here on stage with him. I haven't seen him in person since we graduated, so it's been 2 years. So my story is a little bit different in that you could say it was almost accidental in some ways how I wound up becoming an entrepreneur. Coming out of active duty in the Air Force, my skill set was flying jets. So how do you get from that into a healthcare company? Frankly, it was because of my wife as a behavior analyst, so she had that clinical expertise already. And as we moved back south of Boston to where I was from originally, and she started to work, what we discovered was that, surprising to us, that in Massachusetts, this very progressive state, healthcare is very, very good there. It was a services desert for this very vulnerable part of our population. And as she was working with these kids, what we saw was that what was out there and available to these families was frankly not enough, and it wasn't at the quality that it should be. And so I think it's that classic entrepreneurial problem, or that case where it's like you just discover this problem and you know that you can solve it. And so that really was it for us. I hated commuting into Boston. It was terrible. Don't recommend it to anybody. I didn't find myself a good fit in the finance job that I was doing. And so it seemed like a natural kind of at least transition. And our goal at the time was I was going to just come in and help her get her own practice started and maybe stick it out for a year, try to find something else to do. And here we are, going into our 8th year of operation.
Great. So I'd love to hear about some of the tools and experiences that from SOM that really helped you or inspired you, or you look back and you lean on today for the work that you do as an entrepreneur. I know for me, I joined a startup. I find myself thinking entrepreneurially in my job. So for me, I love the way Nathan Novemsky helped us see, with problem framing, that whole, MMD was a great class for me. I really enjoyed that class. Decio was one of our TAs for Investor, which we barely made it out of, but we did. So yeah, and of course cases, right? So who are some of the professors or cases or experiences or learning team members that helped you support what you're doing today?
If I can start. Coming into this already having a business, I could say that one of the really cool aspects of this program was that as you were learning things or hearing about things in the classroom, you had the opportunity to put them into practice right away. Or in our case too, to validate some of the things we were already doing. And so very impactful for me running a human services organization with lots of staff. The employee class with Jim Barron was huge for us because as we're going through and learning things, as he's showing us different ways of looking at managing employees, I could say that day, like, yes, we're doing that already, or, oh, actually, we could do that a little bit better, and then have long conversations on the drive back, to Massachusetts about how we could put some of these things into practice. Like, it was fantastic. Outside of that, Canales' class on Innovator was really impactful, but almost in a weird way in that, the whole point of that class was to create an archetype, and this archetype of your customer. And just going through that process and thinking of this concept of an archetype was really valuable for us because now we apply it all over the place. It's not just the customer, it's the patient, the family member, how we better understand our staff. I use that when I conduct senior leadership training for our senior clinical team. What is this archetype of this perfect leader, this model person we want to be? And that was a framework that I had not seen elsewhere until I had that class.
Quick question for Ella, though, because Ella, you found someone you went to school with here became one of your co-founders, is that correct?
Correct. That's correct. Yes. I would say that the best asset for Yale SOM is the culture to foster entrepreneurship and innovation. And I was surprised how much I learned from my classmates in our cohort, almost as much as from professors. And speaking to many healthcare leaders and very prominent and accomplished professionals in my cohort, I found out that they have a similar points of view on some healthcare challenges. One of them was Dr. Troy Hirimas, the assistant professor of Cornell Medical Center, and he later became a co-founder of Pink Bridge, and right now we are working together to scale this venture.
That's great. And I was Ella's mentor, so every time she talks about what she's doing, I'm very proud. She owes it all to me, of course. I'm a network guy by nature, and I've never been to a place that has a powerful network like this. Not only great people to work with and interact with that are fun, but also wildly intelligent and advanced in their own fields, and sometimes multiple fields. And so as you look at the NPV Solar website, you'll see a number of my classmates and some professors are on my board of advisors. And that the value of Yale continues to pay dividends for me in my thought process. As a leader, I've always said that none of us is as smart as all of us. And you really, I try and take that to heart in the way I make decisions and the way I communicate and the way I try and listen more as a leader. And it reminds me when I think about that saying that you don't have to be a subject matter expert in everything. In fact, nobody is, right? It's just important to know when to make the decision and when to ask others to help you make the decision. And when you need to rely on others, make sure you've got a competent group that you trust to help you make quality decisions. And if you've set yourself up that way, then you're going to be in really good shape.
Yeah. Don't underestimate the network that you have here for sure. For me, originally from Brazil, went to school in England, didn't really have much of a network in the US. And that makes a big difference too, because not just you're building a network in a new country, but you're building at a very high level. So that makes all the difference in the world. In terms of classes and professors, I think I mentioned already one of them. I can't go without mentioning Professor Ibbotson, being a TA for a few years. But really, I mean, I love going back to basics, this idea of a really a beginner's mind, even doing finance for all those years, going back and talking about the building blocks of finance investor class really helps clarify and solidify a lot of the ideas that might get lost after you've been doing it for many years. Professor Niels Rudy, I just saw him outside now. He was going to grab lunch. Probability is another thing. I study economics, done a bunch of probability courses and felt like I had a good grasp of it. And then I got to his class and I go like, well, not just I didn't have as much of a grasp as I thought I did, but it's not as hard as I felt it was, because it just makes it feel so easy, at least while he's explaining. When you try to do it by yourself, it goes back to being hard again. But when he's explaining, it feels pretty easy, pretty straightforward. It's that the professors network as well. As you're building a business tomorrow, they are open to help you and talk to you and try to help you achieve what you're trying to do. So definitely take that into consideration when you're setting up something.
Could I add to that?
Yeah, please.
Just speaking to the network, you have no idea how the network is going to come to benefit you when you least expect it. It's crazy. Back when Desi and I were here, COVID hit our second year, and we had the benefit. One of our classmates was from Wuhan, and so she was getting reports out of China in November and December, and we were seeing these things and discussing them as a cohort in our healthcare track. And so talk about having that intel up front to help you plan. And so as we saw more and more information coming out of China, and we were tackling it as a class, we had classmates who were trying to, get PPE made direct from factories to hospitals in New York. And when things finally went south, like our company, for example, we were ready for it. We had an operating plan. We went through a huge risk analysis. We had a plan ready to go when COVID got really bad by the end of February. And that was because we had this network and we were talking to them and bouncing ideas off of it. And throughout the rest of that year, I was able to go to all of my classmates and be like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Like, how can we better, be safe doing this practice versus that practice in person? And the direct result, like for our services, the work that we do, we were the only company in Eastern Massachusetts that I've ever heard of that stayed working in person the entire time throughout the pandemic because we could do it safely. And then, fast forward now a few years later, the investment banker, our lead investment banker for our deal with our private equity partners, he was an SOM grad. And he happened to reach out one day because he saw that I was going to SOM. Like, you never know how it's going to come back to help you. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's come out with something else. Right. So I guess the next question I have for you all is, if you could do it any differently, how would you do it any differently? I think some of you touched on it a little bit, but I guess what I mean is, put yourself back in school. You know you want to learn something. What would you have done differently? Or you got a skill, right? Or you want to acquire. Like, what would you have done differently, if anything? And or would you do it again? Knowing what you know now, would you do it again?
Yeah, I'd do it again. There's this saying that I heard right when I was considering starting the business, which I have now printed in a sign hanging on my wall in my office, which is, risk is the tariff paid to leave the shores of predictable misery. And while my life wasn't miserable, I think it's a little extreme, 9 to 5, that didn't maximize my value, the things that I can do. I knew I was capable of more and wanted more. And so as I thought about things, and I've told these guys, there's a moment where you need to decide to jump or not. And I used to cliff jump, so I was talking about literally cliff jumping. But I can liken it to sports where a good friend of mine's a basketball coach, and we were talking about players going from high school to the NBA, or should they go to college first? And education aside, of course, just talking basketball, he goes, it's a no-brainer. They should go to the NBA. And I go, why? And he goes, because why would they spend 2 years learning a college system and then go to the NBA to learn an NBA system? They might as well spend those 2 years learning the NBA system. And when you think about considering to start a business, if you've got enough to get going, you're never going to learn as much sitting on the sidelines as you will being in the game. And so that's a choice that each one of us has to make. But the time that I launched the business and dedicated myself to it, I was ready. I didn't know if I was ready, but I knew I was going to find out. And I can look back and safely say I had plenty of knowledge. And so, I've learned, I've pivoted. The business now operates completely different than we did a couple years ago because of what we've learned. And I wouldn't have learned that sitting on the sidelines.
I would totally do it again. I think there's a difference. I'm not a serial entrepreneur. If this doesn't work, I might not do it again. It's a different question. But going back, I wouldn't change anything. I think that, it is hard. It is not easy. And each market's going to have its own challenges. But it is really going through those challenges that makes the person you are today. And I wouldn't change that at all. The challenges are tough, but that's what makes you stronger as well, and it benefits many parts of your life. So it is fun too, to be honest. I'm not a serial entrepreneur, but I would definitely have done it the same way.
Yeah, I want to second Jamie in this. I will do it again, definitely. Would I change something? Yes, minor changes, because of course you made mistake here and there and you learned from it. And next time, if you have to go through this road, you know which way to build will be the best. But definitely, I will do it again.
Yeah, I would agree with that. all of us are a product of all those mistakes. And so, how can you really go back and change things? Because we wouldn't be the same people we are. And I'd say that at the end of the day, the jury's kind of still out if it's worth doing all over again, just because we're not at the finish line. And we still have a lot of work yet to do. And I think for, my wife and I, trying to raise a small, we've got 3 kids, trying to raise our family basically in the business. As a small business owner, in many ways, you got to weigh that cost benefit and what are we losing out on by throwing all of our weight of effort into this venture. And for us, it's time with our kids. And so at the end of the day, if you can make that justification to your family or whoever's important to you about why it's so important for you to be here instead of there with them, if you can do that successfully, then you've won. And I think on a day-to-day basis, we do a pretty good job with that.
So I'm curious, of the 4 of you, I'd love to talk a little bit about raising capital or bootstrapping, right? How did you fund your business? And what are some lessons learned? And this could have been the whole conversation, I'm sure. But there are so many. So at Yale Ventures, we speak with both faculty and student entrepreneurs. Some think that VC is the way to go. Others have great sources of non-dilutive funding in the form of, SBIR grants. So, but just would love to hear your stories, both good and bad, if you can share some stories about raising capital.
Yeah, all right, I'll go first. Yeah, in my case, we had the possibility of an opportunity. And so the idea was really, use savings to try to see that opportunity come through. Had a runway, we knew roughly what was the timing we needed to have a yes or a no and the cost we needed to have a yes or a no. But once that opportunity either panned or didn't pan out, in our case it did pan out, then it becomes a little bit like, I guess, I will say I'm not very good with the platforms, but I think Kickstarter, the one that you can sell the product, and then produce. It's a little bit like that. Once we did get the opportunity, being a hedge fund, right? We spend the money, not knowing if we're going to get that first investor. But once we did get the first investor, then we're already selling that product, and then we have that management fee that covers a big chunk of those costs. So I think finance might be a little bit different on how you finance those things. Happy to talk about more in details when you're launching a fund. There are different deals you do as well in terms of selling parts of the GP or doing rev shares and et cetera, but that might be a bit too specific to my case. But yeah, so a bit, going to your savings to start but knowing as well where to stop, right? So this is as much as I'm gonna spend and this is as long as I'm gonna try. And then in our case, it panned out and then we knew we had that revenue and that runaway going forward.
I bootstrapped also. When you're thinking about solar projects, the projects themselves are very capital intensive, but you can find investors on a project by project basis. The operational engine of a solar company is as expensive as you want it to be. And so, we have plenty of runway or had plenty of runway when we launched the business to feel very comfortable that we had the time needed to get the business up and stable. And then, there's a lot of ways to get creative, to Decio's point. I think the biggest question to ask yourself is, how expensive is the first investment dollar going to truly be? What part of the company are you giving away for that? Or what upside are you going to give away? Again, something my network helped me understand in great detail, and we walked through it. A myriad of different scenarios from VC to other forms of equity to private equity to this and that, and made the educated decision at the end of the day to continue to bootstrap because that's the way we can keep ownership of the company. But like Decio said, this is just an hour we have. If you have any questions for me, I'll make myself available to you anytime if you want to talk through more in depth how that worked.
Okay, in our business also we bootstrap. We had some savings, and definitely you have to have savings. If you're bootstrapping, you need a runway. Right now we are scaling and we are considering to going for round of finance.
We also bootstrapped personal savings, 401ks, liquidated IRAs, forget about it. because you have to be all in, but to everything you've heard, you have to be realistic about it and know what is the limit of that runway. Going back, I didn't know how to raise money. This was well before Yale, and I didn't have the network to have access to a lot of that. And so for me, it was how can I get bank loans and things like that. So I was constantly beating down the doors of the local banks, the SBA, and just trying to bootstrap in that way. And it's hard in healthcare when you don't have any actual tangible collateral to provide to secure a loan. You've got people. And trying to get the bankers to understand that people are the investment. It's really hard. And if you're not a doctor or following those conventional healthcare kind of routes where the bankers are comfortable with it and it's understood, it is very, very hard to find money. Eventually, we did decide to go and take on private equity partners, and that was a fantastic decision for us. We made it for a number of reasons I'm happy to go through, but the biggest thing is you have to weigh how much you're going to be willing to give up. Just like Jamie's saying, because whether it's from the beginning or later on down the line, you're giving up something, and the most important thing is control.
So my next question is maybe a little provocative and inspired by a conversation we had as we were walking here, which is entrepreneurship for everybody? I think there's a lot of paths for entrepreneurs. I was also sharing that in my first year learning team, collectively, this is not me, right, solely, but collectively we acquired 2 businesses. We scaled a sole proprietorship. We launched a clinical practice. We joined a seed stage startup, right? So there's a lot of paths and a lot of opportunities to be entrepreneurial. But do you think it's for everybody?
No. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody all the time. There will be the time in your life and the moment where it might make sense for you, whatever is the setup of your family, whatever is the setup of your savings. And if it is something you're interested, then it's definitely worth it. But I think the point as well is you open your social media, which I'm sure you don't because you're a SOM and you have a lot of things to do. But when you graduate, like I did, I opened my social media and you get anxious because everyone's an entrepreneur and everyone's making millions of dollars on Instagram and you go like, wait a second, why am I working for someone? If it's not for you, if it's not something that's gonna make you happy, might not be the path. Because it is something that takes a lot out of you. So you really want to want that and be committed. And if you don't, it's fine too. It doesn't mean anything. If you don't want to be an entrepreneur, there's very good, satisfying careers that don't involve being an entrepreneur. And maybe it's just not the right time, and you'll find the right time as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Like Decio's nailing it. Risk tolerance is kind of the biggest thing. Are you at that stage in your life willing to accept all the risks that come from jumping into something? And it can come in a lot of different forms. Are you ready to take out a home equity loan to help float your business through a rough patch? Are you ready to sell that second car when your revenue cycle slows down because the payers suck? Things can happen. And at the end of the day, you have to be prepared to make some hard decisions if you start running out of options, and that's really stressful. And I think it's hard too, as you start scaling up your business and you have people who count on you and their livelihoods are tied to your decisions as the leader of that organization, there's a lot of pressure that comes with it, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah, I think I'd say it really comes back to what you value in life. And, I'm risk averse by nature, but this was a risk that I was comfortable taking. If entrepreneurship is not a risk you're comfortable taking, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It just comes back to what you want to achieve and what your drive is and what, your goals are and how you see yourself getting there. If your goals are really to continue to scale within a corporate environment, that's great. That's frankly a lot easier than what we've been doing. But if you're interested in entrepreneurship, it's been the most fun thing I've ever done. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. So both answers there.
Good? Okay. So curious about, I feel like I need to ask the business and society question, right? Or they'll kick me off stage. So I want to hear from you all. or one of you, if you could share with me or share with us a story about how you reflected on it in your entrepreneurship journey, or how it came up or how it showed up as you were building or scaling your business.
Yeah, mine from my interview and my essays to apply to this program was around furthering solar and sustainability more generally in commercial real estate environments. Being a solar entrepreneur, by nature, there's a societal benefit, which I'm passionate about. I grew up on a farm, and I feel passionate about making decisions that are of high quality for the earth, but also finding ways to do that and have profit. And solar was that perfect intersection that I stumbled into one day at work when we were looking at doing a solar project, and I had to learn the hard way how to manage that, and fell in love with it. Beyond that, how are we impacting our local community? We're bringing in some interns, things like that. Are we giving a portion of proceeds back? These are all the questions that we ask to try and ensure that we're thinking more broadly. I really don't care about being rich. I care about having fulfilling days and leaving something for my kids, a legacy of hard work and some of these other things. And that business and society piece just is a perfect fit for me. It's literally why I came here. So that, I think my solar business is kind of an outlier in how it naturally forms business and society.
Yeah, I can say a couple of things about that. When we launched the fund, we also launched with a foundation attached to it. As you know, hedge funds can be hugely profitable, right? It's a very scalable business. To manage $10 billion and to manage $1 billion, your fixed cost is fairly similar. So a lot of it, what you get is that pure profit profile. And to my surprise, there really isn't a lot of hedge funds out there that have a foundation. There's a lot of people that got very rich through hedge funds that have a foundation in their own name, but there's not a lot of funds that have a foundation attached to it, let alone a startup fund. And that was the idea, to do it from the beginning and commit our profits to it. And we've done it. Abby, which is, we went to Yale together, is the chairwoman of the foundation. She's the one that's heading the foundation today. And we always try to do things that are close to one of the board members' heart. So our first year, when we launched, we did partner with Green Wave, which does kelp farming here in the Long Island Sound. That we thought was the best bang for our buck because they had an environmental component, but they also had a social component because they were retraining people that are out of the labor force to become kelp farmers. Our second year, we partnered with Earl Monroe Basketball School in the Bronx, really the idea of bringing sports to help you do better in school. And then the third year, it was more closer to me. We were just talking about climbing before the panel. I used to be a climber before my daughter was born. Now I'm not so much of a climber, but I spent a fair amount of time climbing, and through climbing, got to know this guy that you might have seen climbing with no rope around, called Alex Honnold. He has a foundation called the Honnold Foundation, and we caught up, and he was doing a project of bringing solar electricity to rural communities in the Amazon. So it was really up my alley because I'm Brazilian and solar and climbing. So we got together to do that on the third year. So really this idea of, how can you use the things that really the power that you have, not to quote Spider-Man in a serious panel here, but really you do have a really incredible power here. You are, at the top of society, definitely in business here at Yale. So what are you going to do with that, right? You can do it, just for yourself, or you can do it for yourself and society. And people here probably are focused on the latter and really doing it for yourself and society.
During years when I was a student at SOM, I and few other students from class 23, we formed Path Forward organization, which help refugees. Actually, we had 3 of us went to Krakow, Poland, and we brought funds and we bought supplies for the refugees. We went to a few refugee camps. So right now I'm continuing working for this organization, and actually we, as our startup in Bridge, we plan to support the mission of this organization Path Forward.
Yeah, I agree basically with everything you've heard. I think you are all here, for the same kind of common purpose, right? There's an aspect of doing something with business to benefit society that brings you to this place and makes you want to learn to become better business leaders. I'm fortunate where my mission is in front of me every single day. We see that. And it might be harder in different industries to make that connection and find that tangible impact on society. So we're lucky. But just like the others are saying, it's all about value. What kind of value are you creating in your work? And what are you going to do with it? Are you going to take it all for yourself? Are you going to leave it for family? Or are you going to leave it for the people around you? And I think the common thread with all of us is that we're taking steps to provide that value out to society, not just for ourselves.
It's a pretty powerful note. I almost feel like we should segue to questions soon. But maybe, so think about your question. I want to ask one final question. You don't have to answer this, but is there anything I asked or I didn't ask that you really want to share, or any advice you have for the students sitting here today before we jump to questions?
I'll just kind of round out a thought that I mentioned earlier. It was around this idea that as the founder of the business, you need to be knowledgeable in every area. And that's, again, something that is not true, but you need to be knowledgeable enough to ensure that you've got the right people around you that help you make those decisions. I saw a great quote recently that I wanted to mention, which really pertains to being a founder. And the quote is that the problem with communication today is that people listen to reply. They don't listen to understand. As a founder, you're asked to make all the decisions for your business, and it's very important to know when to pause and say, let me think about that. Because it's your natural day-to-day, you're snapping out answers because it's your business and nobody knows it as well as you. But that doesn't mean you should continue to answer off the cuff every time. So I'll kind of leave you with that thought, which I work on a daily basis.
Yeah, if I could offer up my biggest piece of advice for those thinking about entrepreneurship and wanting to jump into a venture and being successful, it's you can't do it alone. I mean, we talked a lot about network, but even just within the organizations we run, and you have to have somebody that you can trust, that you can go to and bounce ideas off of. Somebody who can tell you those hard truths, that tell you when you're overreaching, crush those dreams if they're not rational. And so, I've been lucky. My wife is my business partner, and we work very well together. We complement each other. But for all of you, it could be a business partner, it could be a spouse, or a best friend, or a network of friends and classmates. Whoever it is, you cannot go it alone. You need to talk to somebody as you go through this, because chances are they're going to think of things that you didn't, and they're going to see things in a way that you should.
I agree with Scott, what he said, and my best piece of advice will be speak to your classmates, speak to other students who are interested in entrepreneurship. You may find your co-founders, or you may find your A-team. Another piece of advice, just take courses in entrepreneurship, electives. They are extremely helpful. My best courses in entrepreneurship, which I took, were with Professor A.J. Wasserstein, Adam Blumenthal, Song Ma, Christopher Liu, Saisha Khalid, and many others. And establish relationship with professors, ask questions, and plan for the future.
All right, should we do questions? Dacio, do you want to anything?
No, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind, I think the one concept that is not finance and all of those things that I talked about before that was very helpful in setting up the business for me was hiring for fit for me was the best thing I've learned, and might be a concept you're very familiar with. It wasn't as much for me. Hiring for fit makes all the difference in the good and the bad times. And in entrepreneurship, there's going to be a lot of bad times, and hiring for fit is going to be essential. which is, I worked in large companies and it wasn't as important at the time. A lot of it was, oh, how good you are at this specific task and this specific role. But as an entrepreneur with a small team, hiring for fit for me, was the golden rule.
That's great. Should we open up to questions? Yeah.
If anyone has a question, feel free to walk down to the mic so the folks online can hear as well.
You have one online question. Yeah, I think this is primarily for Amy, but we have a question of how can students get involved with Yale Ventures and what are their resources for those who are starting to think about a company?
So I would say first, I'm an email or a call away, so feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to give you more sort of a custom recommendation or advice, based on what you're looking for. So Sci-City and the SOM program on entrepreneurship are two great student-focused innovation centers here on campus. So depending on what you're looking for, I would start there. At Yale Ventures, though, we have an associates program that I started last summer. We're going to do it again this year. We usually hire, though, full-time students, but I'm always pushing to, see if we can get some EMBA students or others to work with us. So, if you're interested in actually working on one of our venture teams, we'd love that. And we're always interested in co-founder matchmaking. So again, I don't know what this person's interest is, but, just reach out and let me know because I can definitely, connect you to that right person. And while we're waiting for the next question, I'll also just mention my advice is that almost anything you can imagine is a phone call away. I think we all will pick up on the first ring from anybody from our program or Yale. So remember that.
Howdy, Madden, class 24. So we are 3 months from graduation about right now. What is the extra thing that you guys did during your time? There's so many, we're spoiled for choice for resources, right? Whether it's reaching out to professors, whether it's doing electives, working with career counselors. What's the extra thing that you did or wish you had done more of? How can we use our last 3 months trying to take advantage of everything we have here at Yale?
So first of all, the last 3 months was the worst. I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding. No, hey, congratulations to all of you about to graduate and all of you wrapping up year one soon. I learned early, I was a pop coordinator for my year, and so I was really kind of exposed to a lot of people in both the years, and I learned pretty quickly through that experience how open Yale is as a community. You're only going to be here for 3 more months regularly. Take advantage of that. Anyone that has an @yale.edu email address will respond to you. If there's somebody that has nothing to do with the School of Management, but they're a subject matter expert in something that interests you, make that connection. Take them out for drinks on a Thursday night. That was always what I did. And bond with them and spend that time here while it's convenient, while you already have a reason to be here. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, I'll do that when I'm wrapping up graduation. But if you're not in New Haven regularly, it can be harder to find that time and to make that time to come here. So take advantage. This program is not just Fridays and Saturdays. It's whatever you want it to be. That's just what you have to do to graduate, right? Everything else is what you want to do for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nothing to add. That's on point. Yeah.
First time I've been the smartest guy in the room. Paul.
I think the microphones are scared.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Get down there, Paul.
So, I've heard a lot of ideas of like the students getting together and creating these off, out of the curriculum ideas, building a fund or donating their time or money to a special cause. Is there, using your entrepreneurial minds for a second here, if you got a year and a half left, I'm 25, how do you expand the pie essentially? How do you look at how can you use this time with your classmates to build something bigger? Like what would be the thing that you would build with your classmates right now if you could do it again? I guess is the question.
These guys are fresh out of the Carter racing case.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't know. John.
Not to be the guy that answers everyone's questions, but I would start networking on business ideas now. You know, don't wait until a lot of us, and I was guilty of it too. We're just doing our best to hang on. You know, time is hard to find when you're in this program and life and kids and jobs. Try and plant those seeds now. Try and get those subject matter experts at least involved as you're starting to pull together ideas, decisions, whether it's in a corporate role or not. Again, the things that are available to you at Yale are vast. And so, you know, try and find those things that motivate, inspire, change the way you think while you're here. But I don't have a direct example unless you want to come work for me. All right.
Just out of curiosity, has anybody taken the Startup Founders Practicum course? No, I'll do a little shout out for that, which is, yeah, okay. I took it, it was amazing. A lot of full-time students, but I think they've opened up spots for EMBAs as well, which is great. And that's a great way to actually, you know, build something while you're here and get credit for it and have a strong network. And then I would also just shout out Sci-City. And I know a lot of you come in on Thursdays and leave Saturdays, but they do have programming on those days too. And I've met a lot of EMBAs just over the last year and a half, or maybe longer than that, coming through Sci-City. So I would definitely encourage you to check those programs out too. Actually, Jenny Fleiss is going to be here, the founder of Rent Their One Way at, so if you're around, we probably have class, at 5 o'clock at Sci-City, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to add to that too, you know, thinking about, you don't have to go to some of those other classes too. If you wanted to get your hands dirty and like, how do you build a business? I did a business plan for my independent study my last year. Even though I already had a business, I had this other great idea and I was thinking like, how can I put this together? And so I spent that time putting together a business plan for something that I will never launch. But
So if anyone wants to buy a business plan,
yeah, right. But it was a really cool exercise, and then being able to take that too and share it, you know, with some of my classmates who were interested in it and seeing that as an example. Like, you can find time to exercise some of those muscles.
All right, it looks like we have a queue of questions. So we have an online question, we have Shelley, Josh, and then I think Dorian, I'm assuming. All right, so the online question is from Daniela, who is actually considering applying to the Yale EMBA program and is wondering, as an entrepreneur, what is it about Yale's EMBA program that you uniquely found valuable to building your business?
I could jump in really quickly, and I'll let these guys think. Impact-minded, right? We thought about expanding impact, not just, you know, building something for building's sake, but really the impact of it, I think, is unique to Yale. And also the interdisciplinary nature of Yale, the access to things outside of SOM, like across the university. And I think, and I was in sustainability, but I worked really closely with finance folks and healthcare folks. And so I think the interdisciplinary nature of the ideas and the projects we built were pretty exciting, and I think unique to Yale.
Yeah, the program is set up for success, and it will introduce you to diverse thinkers. Your learning team will be made up of people who are pursuing other tracks than you. I think the easier question to answer would be, what didn't help me prepare for being an entrepreneur? Every single thing that we talk about here is pertinent, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're an executive in a corporate business. And I think to each of us, we found bigger value in other courses based on what our skill set was or where our blind spots were. But you know, what you leave with is a well-rounded idea of your strengths, where your blind spots are, and the risks that you're going to need to balance and weigh to make that decision.
Thanks so much for coming out and spending this time. I've learned a lot, and you guys have all kind of touched in different areas that I think has a lot of interesting opportunities for all of us to be inspired from. And with that said, I mean, right now, it's a really exciting time out there in the marketplace. And so now that you guys have your feet a little wet, are you seeing anything that's happening in your respective areas that you think might be worth exploring, or if you were starting today and you wanted to start a business, you might go explore?
100%. Yeah, in healthcare, I mean, you can see the fiscal pressures that are on the hospital systems. Hospitals are shutting down. We've had this explosion of urgent care clinics, but there's this push to distribute care even farther into the communities and community health centers. I mean, take that a step farther. How can we bring healthcare into the home? We have an aging population. They're going to need care soon. If they don't need care already, they don't want to be in a nursing home. They don't want to be in residential care. They want to be at home. Who's going to provide the solution to that problem? Like, when I think about where healthcare is headed, like, that's the next big opportunity out there. We have all this emerging technology. How are we going to use that? So I'd encourage you, if you're interested, to take a hard look at that. It is wide open right now for innovation.
I totally agree with Scott, because our model of delivery is the same. We are at home delivery dermatology services. We deliver services to homes, hotels, to offices, and basically to clients' location. And I think this is a big field.
With solar, we're right on the front of the beginning of the wave. It's been around for a long time, but the regulations haven't been as favorable as they are now. The incentives have not been as favorable as they are now. The tax breaks, the cost of production, the technology is getting better and better and cheaper. And now we're really seeing any renewable really explode across the scene. So whether it's solar or anything else, and there are a lot of pieces in that vertical chain of who does what to get a solar project from A to Z. And so if you're ever curious about some of that vertical integration, I'm happy to speak to that offline.
Yeah, I mean, finance is kind of an old business in a way. You learn modern portfolio theory. It's not modern. It's been 40 years that you have that. So I would say the things I would tell you are things that are true for, I guess, any other market. Sustainability, AI are things that I think will be shaping up a lot of different professions and sectors, and it's not different for finance. The stuff that you can do with AI today is exceptional, and it's impossible for you to make anything investment-wise without taking sustainability into account. But that's a whole hour talk that we can go into in private. Yeah.
Is John?
He doesn't, he's passing the time.
Okay.
Paul, thank you for not moving it, because this is the perfect height for me. So I'm currently in AJ's and Adam's class as an elective, so thank you for bringing them up, because they've been great. But we know we have access to professors. We know we have access to anybody with a yale.edu email address. But has anything happened either during the program or since the program that you recognize was because of the Yale Blue layer that you have behind you? Were there doors that opened because now you represent such an institution? Or were there any, was it easier to talk to somebody because of the brand that was behind you? So not something just directly attached to Yale, like your classmates, your professors, your fellow students, but just outside of the institution.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier, our lead investment banker for our private equity deal was a SOM grad. I had not known him before. And looking back on it and where we are now with our company, and as a family, like, we would not be in the same position had I not come to this program. That isn't to say that we couldn't eventually have gotten to a place where we could seriously take on that size of a partnership, but going through that process and then seeing the value that was created through it, I can't confidently say that I could have done the same thing without it. We're in a much better position now because of this program.
I have an incident when I was taking a class and I spoke to professor. Actually, I spoke to every professor about the business, but we were about to start. And this professor just connected me to another person who was in the same industry and a very experienced entrepreneur. And we had a session, gave invaluable advice, and invited me to contact him if I have any further questions.
Yeah, and I'll just say I regularly get people going, "Oh, you went to Yale?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm surprised too." It does open a lot of doors, absolutely.
I will just say from Yale Ventures, well, even when I was working at a startup, I was pulled in because of my Yale connections, right? And then now being at Yale Ventures, I get so many inbounds from Yale alums who want to mentor, want to fund, want to support startups. So, I think I don't even have to pick up the phone. I mean, I do, but I don't, right? Because there's a lot of Yale alums that are out in the world that want to pay it forward. And so if you're building something, there's a huge network that you can tap into that you don't even know about. So it's not just raising capital, but it does make raising capital a lot easier. A classmate of mine just went from like idea to first check, and I think he said like 56 days. This was, yeah. So these things, these connections do matter, and I see them all the time. They're countless. Yeah.
I know we can go on for a while, but we're at the end of our time, so I want to thank you guys so much. This has been wonderful. Thank you for being here and sharing your insights. Thank you. And we have a little gift for you there, so thank you.